It's time to review our worst comic book of the week, and I guess we were wrong on this one, Doc. We decided to review Capwolf and the Howling Commandos #1, Stephanie Phillips, Carlos Magno, and this isn't a terrible comic book.
It's not. Look, every part of the recipe here was set up for failure. Capwolf, kind of a laughable concept, even when Mark Grunwald did it back in Captain America in the 90s. It was a laughing stock then. Plus, kind of an unknown artist. And then finally, you got Stephanie Phillips. This is a recipe for abysmal, and it actually turned out not terribly bad.
In fact, I would say this is the second best comic book issue that Stephanie Phillips has ever written in her life. I still think Future State Harley Quinn #1 is better. Not meaning that it's great or anything. There are definitely some problems with this. When you think of like Capwolf and the Howling Commandos, I think it's going to be balls to the wall, just like really fun. And I do think she took it probably a little too seriously and focused a little bit too much on the war stuff. I want to see Capwolf fighting the creature from the Black Lagoon or something stupid like that. So I think she missed out on an opportunity to have a whole lot of fun here. But from a technical standpoint, it's constructed well. I
kind of disagree with you. I actually prefer that she wrote it straight. Doing it as a bit, especially when Grunwald did try to do it serious. If Stephanie Phillips would have come in and made it the joke that it actually was, it would have been more of an insult to Mark Grunwald for her to just basically take the piss out of it. And I do understand the idea of making it kind of...
I didn't say make it a parody. I said have fun with it.
Yeah, but I think you're going to get to that because...
Well, certainly the last few pages were the most fun part of the comic book.
Yeah, I think so too. And I am actually looking forward to, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but seeing where it goes in issue 2 of a Stephanie Phillips comic.
The art in it at times actually looks pretty darn good. I've actually heard of Carlos Magno and I've certainly read his comic books before, but at other times it doesn't look so good. Like we get a close-up of Cap's face where it looks like his nose is turned to the side, which I thought was weird. We also get a back angle from Captain America, and he's got some really unathletic thighs to him. His butt just looks really, really strange. And the layouts, admittedly, until the end of it, were about as bland and boring as you could get in a comic book.
The layouts were pretty boring. It was a lot of, front-facing camera angles, close-up on faces. Some of the weirder angles, it was very clear that the artist didn't really know how to draw them. So he kind of took his best shot at it. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't exciting. I really have no major complaints about it. It is significantly a step above what we reviewed last week, which is Phil Noto and his terrible little watercolor baby leg, boring as shit art.
Well, I hope you're ready to talk about that some more, because when we do the Q&A podcast tomorrow, exclusive to Patreon, we will be talking about Phil Noto. Someone wanted to capitalize on that, Doc, and that'll be a lot of fun. But not the most exciting art in the world, but certainly serviceable for the story. And in parts, I thought it was pretty darn good.
Especially the last part. I feel like the artist was definitely more of a horror style artist. And that was kind of cool.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So that's the art, not a problem for the most part. The tone of the book, we talk about this. It's basically straight. It's a straight World War II comic book for the very first, first 2/3 of it, maybe 3/4. That's mostly what it is. And it's Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos. And Nick Fury gets injured as they're being attacked, a surprise attack by the Nazis with this tank that they'd never seen before. And they're trying to get to the bottom of it. It turns out they're protecting this one specific bunker. But Nick Fury's not available, so Cap might have to step in there. And it felt pretty paint by numbers, kind of like the art when it comes to a World War II story.
They used the beginning of this book to justify putting Captain America in charge of the Howling Commandos during World War II instead of Nick Fury. It is paint by numbers. But it's a solid story, and it's a legit war comic story. The whole mystery is that there's some bunker that's got a Operation Wolf Shada or something like that.
So that starts out the adventure, and then we do get one page of just god-awful dialogue between the Howling Commandos themselves. Cap he's on the plane, but he's not in this conversation. It's just bad writing. It's bad dialogue from somebody that just isn't really great at dialogue. It starts out, I'd rather take orders from a one-armed gorilla. You don't need a gorilla, Izzy. We got Dino right here. Work on your insults, Junior. I heard gorillas could outsmart a toddler. So you're saying you don't mind being compared to a gorilla because at least then you're smarter than a toddler? That's not, I didn't mean, the point about the captain stands. He's not our leader. He is Captain America, dum-dum. Doesn't that count for something? It counts for him getting us all killed. The insults are just bad, but
yeah,
it's only one page.
I mean, that was probably the worst part. I know that she did that to juxtapose from the previous page where it was Nick Fury saying, yeah, my team will definitely be honored to have you in charge. But then you get to them actually having Cap in charge and they're complaining that he's a glorified mascot and making fun of each other and calling them smarter than a toddler.
So when we do get in there, they are still having this conflict. And this felt like less based in the comic books than it is based, I guess, in the movies or whatever. Dum-Dum says, what say you? What you say is buy more bonds. Let's not pretend that symbol on your chest is anything more than a good marketing scheme. If you really wanted to complete this mission, then you'd step aside and let me. Yeah, you hear that? We heard that, Junior. You think someone else is out there, and it turns out the wolves are coming over. And it just felt like the conflict between the Howling Commandos and the insults towards Captain America are kind of forced and don't really make sense to me. I can certainly see the Howling Commandos saying, we don't need Captain America. You know, we appreciate him, we respect him, but we work as a unit, and an outsider is just going to make things more difficult, and having a little conflict that way. But, you know, trying to put him down, it just felt like it was really more out of the movies than out of the comic books.
It definitely is. It's very, very much more inspired by Captain America First Avenger than a lot of the World War II era Captain America books.
Well, he's
or
punching
even
Hitler on the very first issue. Now,
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in the comic book, but it's on the cover.
And whenever Ed Brubaker was doing his Captain America run, it flashed back, especially in those first about 30 issues or so. There was a lot of flashback to Cap during World War II. And while some people thought he was a little bit of a mascot, most of the people respected him because he was out there in the field doing work. And it showed how he was also kind of working as a spy. He was the distraction while Bucky was out there actually like doing assassin shit. The Howling Commandos being completely, opposed to Captain America being there is very, very much more drawn on the movie where everybody thought he was a joke until he rescued the whole team out of that fucking dungeon castle place.
Then after this is when the wolves show up. And earlier we had seen this very generic, I don't know what she is. She's some type of witch, priestess or whatever, working with the Nazis. You know, she's going to call on the power of the moon or something. Obviously, she's referring to werewolves. And that's when the wolves show up and they're all fighting. And Cap does take a little bit of a wound. And we finally get to see the transformation. And as you said, this is when the artist Carlos Magno actually seems to come into his own and doing some cool things with the layouts and certainly a lot more detail. And I think he was more interested in illustrating Capwolf than actually Captain America, to be honest.
I think absolutely that's the case. He wanted to draw werewolf comics, and for 27 pages out of this comic, he did not get to draw any werewolves. He started getting crazier with angles. He started doing cool layouts and putting in a lot of extra effort. I'm looking forward to where he goes, especially if we're going to get a lot more werewolves and Capwolf in the next issue. Because
I hope she goes balls to the wall with this and has him fighting mummies or fucking something stupid.
Yeah,
have some fun with it and showing just how crazy a super serum soldier werewolf would actually be.
Exactly. And, because it finishes up on like this cliffhanger where Capwolf finally transforms and he's like, you guys got to kill me. And that's kind of cool. So, you're going to start out the next issue with some conflict between Capwolf and the Howling Commandos. Now, whether or not he infects them as well, I'm kind of curious to find out.
Have fun. Throw some monsters in there and go with it. I was expecting an irreverent, like, crazy balls to the wall, fun-filled horror spin on Captain America. And we do get that the last few pages. But for the most part, it's kind of a straight war comic until you get that. I guess kind of in the vein of like Predator, where it's a straight commando movie until it's a horror movie. Maybe that's what they're going for here. But I hope she doesn't play it like straight horror.
I'd actually be happier if she tries to redeem it and make it the serious thing that it was intended originally to be, that Grunwald missed the mark on. Otherwise, I'm going to feel like all she's doing is mocking one of Mark Grunwald's few failures on his run on Captain America if she does make it too irreverent, it's just going to feel like mean-spirited mockery, because that's how
we need to
Stephanie
hear from the
Phillips is.
people, Doc. Are you team Wes or are you team Doc? Do you wanted to play it straight, or you wanted to go for some irreverent, crazy fun, playing with the Capwolf thing? Definitely want to hear from the people, because Doc and I have come away not overly impressed. I don't know if I recommend this. This is like a 3, maybe a 3.5 out of 5. It's one of the better comic books that she's done, but I hope it goes a little bit more nuts.
I give this about the same grade that I gave that Wolverine versus Predator.
I thought Wolverine versus Predator was way better.
I think it's about the same. Maybe Wolverine versus Predator is a little bit better.
And the one thing it does have going for it that Predator versus Wolverine is it's $5 and Predator versus Wolverine was $8, which was a lot
Rip
of
off. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a rip off. There aren't enough good comic books not to spin a little if there's actually a good one, Doc.
Hey, a rip-off's still a rip-off no matter how good it is. An $8 book for, what was it, 50 pages for Wolverine versus
like
Predator? Yeah. Guess what? You didn't save any money. All you did was pay for 2 single issues. And you got less than 2 singles issues worth.
So you think Capwolf and the Howling Commandos is a better value?
It is actually a better value proposition if you figure out a price per
I'm
page.
talking about the enjoyment factor. I certainly enjoyed Predator versus Wolverine at a greater extent than I enjoyed Capwolf and the Howling Commandos.
And that's why I'm saying they're about even, because this is actually a better price per page, but that one was a slightly better story, so it balances out. The Wolverine versus Predator is not significantly enough better
I don't know. I got a Predator
to offset.
holding up a fucking bear's head, man.
It doesn't matter.
Cool. I did mention earlier that there's one comic book out there that Stephanie Phillips has written that I've read that is certainly better than this one. In fact, it was a really good comic book. In fact, it was in the opening week of Future State when I recommended, or I reviewed kind of all of them, talked about the ones that were good, bad. I remember Flash being absolutely awful, but Harley Quinn absolutely stood out as very, very good. Didn't know who Stephanie Phillips was then, but I thought maybe she had a chance. It turned out I was a little bit wrong on that one. Definitely check this out. I call a Stephanie Phillips comic absolutely great right here. There's also a link in the video description.